Welcome back to the Your Invisible Advantage podcast. It's me, T. I'm your host, and today we have a very special guest, and she is one of my best friends, and I just want her to be on all my podcasts. So, Alex, welcome.
Hello. Thank you so much.
I'm so excited to have you here. So, every single guest, I say the exact same fucking thing, and I'm going to say it with you. I could introduce you, but I will butcher it. So, could you please introduce yourself?
What a question.
Where do I start?
Where do I start? Well, I work with high performers. So basically people who are doing all the things that they need to be doing, but nobody has eyes on them. So that's sort of where I come into play. You and I are very similar in terms of we understand human behavior. We understand, when I look at how I understand things, it's through the lens of emotions and the brain. I feel like these are two things that just sort of rule us and shape us as humans. Obviously, in the past, I've been very heavy on the parenting side of things and the trauma healing side of things, which I call imprints. So all of that stuff to me is working with the brain and emotions and just applying it in different ways. And I just currently love to apply it to high performers.
I love that. So explain to people who you are outside of that.
Outside of that, I am best friend to Tayla. That's my first
Number one.
Yeah, first of all.
That is her first title.
Yes, obviously, if you message me, that is my first priority is to listen and reply. I'm a mum to two boys as well. They're 5 and 7. And yeah.
That is you.
Yeah.
That is you. All right, perfect. Thank you. So that segue is perfect because I want to ask you, what is the interplay that you see as to why you can coach on, and your work is very similar to mine. We just do help different people, but kind of similar, but different. But how can you teach someone on parenting, and how can you teach someone who's, let's say, a professional athlete or a CEO or etc.? Because I know we have the exact same view on this, where it's like, humans are humans at the end of the day. So I want you to explain to the audience why, because they might be a bit confused of like, well, how the fuck is parenting related to an athlete or whatnot?
Of course. So when I look at kids, a brain develops in a specific way. They have no impulse control. They're very heavily dominated by emotions, and they need to develop a certain way. And throughout childhood, you're also forming your imprints, how you see the world, your conditioning. And essentially when it comes to parenting, we're just always in the middle of that. So when we understand that's happening, we can build skills with kids. We can teach them how to do things. That's going to obviously greatly impact the long term. When I'm looking at an adult, all I see is the reverse of that. I'm like, okay, well, this happened here in this phase of the brain. This happened. These are the skills you built. This is the conditioning that you built around that. So it's kind of just looking at it in reverse. With kids, I find it really empowering that we're right in the middle of it. Like, you're watching it unfold. So I personally love knowing what's happening, what that's going to look like. I feel like my superpower is in having a bird's eye view on things. So I can understand intricately what's happening down here in real time, but I'm able to sort of zoom up and see, where is this leading to in the long term? What does it look like? What other factors are coming into this? And at the end of the day, just like basically what I said 5 minutes ago, was the brain and emotions are something that we never outgrow. They're always something that we have to challenge ourselves with, change whether we're thinking, how we're thinking about something, or learning something new, or keeping our brain active. A brain is like a machine. It's a computer. So it can only use what you've programmed into it and what you've stored into it. So I really like working with adults in terms of adding more, changing things around. With kids, it's like, what are we wiring in? What's going to make you a really incredible human when you're older? What are your belief systems like? Not even what do you think? It's like, what do you think is real and possible in this world? So that's in a nutshell why. And like you said, everybody's a human being. So once you understand how humans work and the things that impact that, it starts to become really simple and really easy, even though every person is complex.
And then it doesn't matter really what they're trying to achieve in life. So whether they're trying to build a business, whether they're trying to build a personal brand, whether they're trying to win a state championship, like whether they're trying to land a $50 million deal, like it doesn't really matter, because they're all trying to achieve something. And it's like the human is the thing that either gets in the way or helps them live up to that potential and gets them there. It's really interesting. I have a client who, she's not a coach or anything like that. She actually is, I hate saying like the word normal, but like a normal person who's not in the online space, but she has a very high up position in a business, and so she works for them. She's an employee, and she got a raise, and she's got a very high pressure role and situation that she has to deal with a lot of stress and pressure and things like that. And one thing why she hired me, and something that I thought was really interesting, was like, she said, I'm not, like, everyone tells me I should just quit because there's so much pressure and like, how do I handle it and that? But she's like, but the thing is, I come with me to every job I'm going to. So even if I was to get another job paying the same amount of money or more or less or whatever, she's like, I'm still the one in that role. Like, I am the person who goes to each of these things that I have to do. So why would I change the job instead of focusing on looking at me, the human? And I think like that's perfect, where it's like, yeah, it's going to follow you around into everywhere that you go. So it's like people trying to look for, in my line of work, you know, different strategies, different businesses. It's like, but you're the human operating it. So why would you not look at that as like the number one priority, which is like, that's the work you do, is looking at the human first.
Exactly. And, you know, my ex-partner, like the father of my kids, we were together for 10 years and he's a professional athlete. So being around that scene and those people, it's like you can see exactly how what you do on the field is one thing, but they are the whole person all the time, and how you deal with stress, how you manage things, how you perceive things. You know, you watch people have really high pressure situations and you're expected to pull something amazing off. How you deal with those emotions and how you control your brain and essentially how you manage all of those different factors is the result of that. So, and these are skills that we're not taught in school, we're not taught them in life. It's skills that you have to build by putting yourself out there. And I see my role as really helping people build those skills really effectively and really quickly.
Yeah, and I love something that you and I both do is we both believe like you don't really sit there and learn them in a classroom setting. Like you learn them out in the real world. You learn them when, you know, you're actually doing the thing, and then you need someone in your pocket to be able to support you through that, rather than like sitting down 1 hour every month and learning this thing. And I think that's where people go wrong with self-development, where it's like, and I mean, I would love your opinion, but like they, you know, think they're going to learn everything about themselves in a book or a textbook or a university, and that can teach you great information, but information without real world practical examples or like living it is so different.
Yeah, that's to me the epitome of embodiment. Knowledge is one thing, embodiment is a whole other thing. And I think experience teaches you. You can learn something. You know, when I worked really heavily in trauma and imprints, that's sort of what I got across to people was like, you've learned all this stuff. You can tell me how trauma lives in the body. You can tell me, but you can't do anything about it. So you have a knowledge pull there, but you have an embodiment problem. You have an application problem. You have a lack of skills problem in terms of being able to resolve that.
Yeah, I feel like, so one of my questions that I had for you, which like we're getting to it quicker than I thought we would, but one of my questions was, what does it do to someone psychologically when they know better, but they don't do better, which is that exact scenario. They have all the information. They've done all the self-development. They're listening to Tony Robbins. They're, you know, fucking listening to Gary Vee, whoever else. I don't even know who else. Who's some spiritual person? I don't know. They're listening to those people, right? Like Louise Hay. They've read the books. But what actually is happening in someone's psyche when it's like they know they should be doing something, should, right, being the word. They know they should be doing something different, but they don't, and then they beat themselves up and like they stay in that cycle.
I think people don't even recognize it that way. I think a lot of people think they're doing something because they're reading about it or learning about it, but it's not helping them process the thing. They're not actually applying it. So they feel like they've spent all this time and all this money and all this energy, and they're like, oh, but I still have this trigger, or I still have this thing. And it makes people feel like they're more broken than they are. It makes it feel like it's more complex than it is.
Yeah.
And I was a bit more cutthroat. I was like, go do something different, plant new evidence in your brain, and then tell me how you feel. Instead of ruminating on how you're feeling now that you know this. It's like almost the knowledge creates a bigger gap inside people.
100%. Yeah.
And there's too much knowledge, whereas, you know, we're lucky we live in an age of information, but we didn't evolve because of that. You know, it can fast track the process. And I think what I've noticed in myself and in other people is knowledge will help us understand something that's happening. So I was literally having a conversation just this morning about giving birth. Side note for anybody who doesn't know or I don't talk about it, but I had 2 really amazing home births. And it doesn't matter how much you learn about birth, you can't force your body to do something different.
Yeah.
So the way that you apply what you know is going to look different. Okay, so people are constantly, learning breathing techniques and this and that, but people often forget to either do them or they're like, well, that didn't really help. And what did help me the most was understanding how things work in birth, how our body is designed. That's the knowledge piece. And equally knowing I have to let go of all of that. It sort of helped me switch off my mind, which sounds very counterintuitive, but it's such a physiological process. But I knew, so for example, I knew, okay, when contractions are this far apart, I'll know I'm in this phase of labor, I'll know I'm in early labor or active labor, or there's something called transition phase, where essentially most women will hit a point where they're like, oh my God, I can't do this anymore, and start freaking out. But transition is actually the baby comes out right after that. The head starts coming out. So when I knew these things mentally, even though my brain was completely somewhere else, it's like a little part of me would switch back on and be like, oh, I don't know if I can do this anymore. And then I just knew, I'm like, he's about to come. Mm-hmm. And then that's exactly what happened. So I think this is how we apply and embody something. Knowledge should ease us, because the way I see humans is like, when we don't understand something, it's an open tab in our brain.
Yeah.
And we really struggle to close it and settle. People are like, don't worry about it. Like, we want to understand.
Yeah, it's like, thanks. Not helpful.
Yeah, you say it all the time, like humans seek to understand.
Yeah.
And I think when we can satisfy that, wanting to know piece, then that should probably be like the quickest, shortest bit. And then we can focus on actually applying it. And embodying it and using it is going to look very different. It's usually not so much a conscious process. It's kind of like, oh, yes, that's right. And then I have to surrender and let go in this moment. So there's just a lot of things. But honestly, going back to the birth thing, birth is probably my biggest analogy that
I was just about to say birth is the perfect analogy for how that works.
Yeah.
And you have to trust the process, and you have to you don't get to decide, oh, I want to be 10 centimeters and then you're 10 centimeters. I don't know if that's actually the true factual information, but I think it's 10 centimeters.
Yes, absolutely. And I would always bridge this across to, when I work with high performers or people in business, whatever it is, I'm always constantly trying to explain to them, and we'll get to the pullback sort of era stuff, but I'm always trying to explain to them, you can't change a process. You being like, I'm going to do this, you're not going to make it happen any faster.
Yeah.
You deciding that you're going to give birth, you can't tell your body do it in 1 hour, do it in 10 hours, do it in 3 hours. You have to go along with that process.
It's like planting a tree. You can't have a 10-year-old tree in 1 year.
It doesn't work that way.
Does not make sense.
But a lot of people, and I feel like what a lot of the self-development industry has done has made people believe that they can. And if it's not happening that fast, there's something wrong with you, or there's something that you're missing, or there's something that you're not doing.
Yeah.
And I found that a lot of conversations I've had to have with people revolve around that, where it's like, you're not actually, not that you're not being realistic and I don't want you to dream big, but it's like, can you see that there's a process to this?
Yeah.
You posted content for a week straight, amazing. You're not going to have 1 million followers.
Yeah. Christina and I were just talking about in my previous podcast where, she was saying if you're not going to post for 3 years without wanting anything in return, don't bother.
Basically.
Literally, if you can't post for 3 years without asking for something, then don't do it, because it's not going to be worth it to you. And I think, that process is so important. I always think to everything where there's always the process of learning, Maslow, is it Maslow's?
Maslow's got the hierarchy of needs.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's got the process of learning as well.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's his. Anyway, the process of learning is you have to go through those exact steps. And it's you don't get to, just because you decide, doesn't mean you get to override how nature works. And you relate it to the birth. I relate a lot of my things to analogies with nature, because I think we human nature, it's in the word. Nature, we are one with nature, yet we think we're superior. We think we're better than that and we can do more. And it's no. We've got to actually surrender to how life works, And I think that people get stuck in the story, which is where you were saying then they get stuck in like, I should be further along. This, like, my trauma shouldn't still be coming up. I shouldn't still be triggered by that, but I set a boundary, but this, that, the other. I've been posting, I've been consistent. And it's like, you're not understanding the full picture here. Like, that is not all that's required there.
Agree. I know we're both heavy on the nature stuff because it is, and something that we spoke to the girls about at our last event. I got everybody a packet of seeds.
So random.
It was so random, but it served a purpose because I was like, flip your seeds over. Let me know how much sun it needs. Let me know how much water it needs. Let me know what season you need to plant it in.
Yeah.
And we made sure that we got everybody different ones. And it's not supposed to look like that. And I think this is where people
And so for context with that, some people had like, it needs sun. Some people had like, put it in the shade. Some people had like, it'll take 3 years. It needs water. It doesn't need water. And like, the point was like showing that every single person is going to like blossom and bloom in different ways, in different times, with different conditions. And like, there's no one size fits all. It's like every single person. And that's where social media is dangerous in that sense, where it's like you are online comparing yourself all day, every day. Well, that person grew their business in this long. Well, that person hit their personal best today and I haven't. And it's like we're constantly looking and seeking for evidence why we're not enough.
Yes.
Or why we haven't got to where we want to get to.
Exactly. Which to me is childlike behavior. Yeah. Where am I? Where do I sit?
I always say this. I say people are stuck in childlike psychology.
Yeah.
And like my job is to help them step into like adulthood.
I think one of our earliest conversations was like, it's easier to deal with children than it is children in adult bodies.
Yeah.
That was real.
Because there's so much more conditioning to undo.
Exactly. And it gets very hardwired. But back to the seeds and the stuff, you plant in different seasons. And I took the girls through this process of just understanding what each season serves a purpose for and the fact that they all had a different plant. So your business is going to be unique to you. Just because this person has master classes and this and that, maybe you don't want that.
Yeah.
Maybe your business is different. Maybe you thrive in the one-on-ones or
content. Different style of content.
Exactly. So learning that everyone's a different plant who's going to need different conditions. That's why you hire a good coach or a good mentor, because they should be able to read you and the conditions that you need.
Yep.
But where people become their own biggest block is they're looking at what's everyone else doing, how are they growing theirs, how's their crops going. You're like, no, like that's not what we're doing.
Yeah, they're like looking at someone else's garden and being like, oh my God, they have cherry tomatoes, they have carrots, they have this. And then they're neglecting their own garden where they haven't even planted the seed yet. And you're like, bitch, you got to plant your seeds and you got to start watering them. Like, stop focusing on that person's garden.
Yeah. And when I took them through the seasons, I could see it really clicked for people where someone's in their spring, they're blooming.
Yeah.
You might be in your winter. Mm-hmm. And this is where a lot of the pullback era stuff I've been talking about.
Yeah. We're both obsessed with the pullback phase at the moment, by the way. That's where this conversation is going. Welcome.
But essentially it's like winter is a time where, autumn, everything falls down, the leaves and everything get composted into the ground, and winter is where all the nutrients are created. So what I noticed was a lot of people going through the winter phase, we're made to believe that business should be like spring all the time, should be spring and summer all the time. You should constantly, and I understand that is the mark of certain types of businesses. I think when I look at products or whatever, that's in my opinion, a lot easier to sustain.
Yeah.
Because a product sells itself. Like you're not, you have a marketing strategy, it kind of comes out different.
The human doesn't come in as much because it's not like a personal brand, it's like a product brand.
Yes.
Yeah.
But whereas when you're coaching or mentoring or you have an online business where you work with people, it's a very different ball game. Mm-hmm. And the consistency, in my opinion, is going to look very different.
Yeah.
I think that's why people feel a lot of ups and downs, and you have a coach here and there who's like, but I nailed this many cash months and that many cash months, and people feel like they're doing something wrong and they're like, it should be spring all the time. What's happening? But the pullback era is just something I made up because I was like, people are struggling to pull back. They are really struggling to understand that life works in a process of pulling back. You need to go through those seasons, just like summer, winter, autumn, spring. And if you don't do that, you don't replenish the nutrients, then people are burnt out, run down, they feel like they've lost their passion, lost their creativity, they've lost a lot of things, but you're also always growing and changing and evolving as a person. And if you don't have a period of time where you allow yourself to pull back, which to me doesn't mean like you stop what you're doing.
Yeah, no, it's not stopping. That's for sure.
You just sort of have more of a mental and emotional process of pulling back. And people are like, oh, there's something wrong if I feel like that. This isn't bringing me joy anymore. And it's like, hello, to me, our emotions are our biggest indicator. Doesn't matter what. I feel like all of like the really old school, traditional, whether it's spiritual or something like that, it's always like, or Abraham Hicks type of stuff. It's always like your emotions guide you. So if you're not enjoying something or if it's not lighting you up anymore, I understand there's things that we do that like run things that it's not like, oh my God, woohoo. But
Yeah.
there comes a point where it's like if you're dreading something every day and it's like taking from you, like I have this saying that's like if it's not feeding you, it's eating you.
Yeah.
And it gets to that point where it's like, well, it's time to sort of start pulling back. And in the pullback, I find when I talk to people, there's like a period of time where you have to break down that conditioning of I need to keep going and doing more and more and more and more. And it's quite an uncomfortable process and you feel like you're sort of being left behind in a way and everybody is trudging forward. But that's where a lot of people struggle to be very honest with themselves. And that's something else that I found with high performers is a lot of my job is getting them to see clearly and just be honest with themselves because you can't actually move anywhere if you're not honest. There's a lot of like push forward, push forward, push forward, but you haven't actually moved. You've moved like 2 or 3 steps, you're in the same spot. It pays off. And my little arrow tattoo was the first tattoo I ever got. And it means like when life pulls you back, it's to shoot you forward.
Yeah. And I think like if you think about it like a car it's so weird, but like a manual car, you can't have your car in 4th gear all the time. You have to like go through the different gears because it just doesn't work like that. Like you literally burn the car out and then people are like operating their business in gear 4 24/7 and it's like, do you understand why you're reaching that point? And like people call it burnout, but it's just like you're over functioning because you don't understand the process of the seasons. You don't understand that there are definitely going to be seasons where the bare minimum is required and that's all you can give right now. There's going to be seasons where you're more in the back end. There's going to be seasons where you're enjoying the fruits of your labor. There's going to be seasons where like all these different things are happening. So for you, what do you experience with why is more not always the answer? Like, what do you see when people just, they can't like, even though they know this, like logically people know this, right? People know that, oh yeah, there's seasons, like, and they hear it and they say, yeah. But like very different from actually executing, okay, I am going to pull back. And that doesn't have to be an action. It can be like a mentality, like an energy. But yeah, what do you see when people can't do that? Like the control is just so strong in them where they're like, I cannot release control here.
Everything comes back to emotion for me. I'm like, you're avoiding feeling this. And I'm quite upfront with people and I'm like, listen, this is what you're avoiding and you're scared of this.
Yeah.
And that emotion is now controlling you. And you're lying to yourself. A lot of the time when people I find a lot of people will hire a bunch of different people, invest in this, invest in that. And it's because they're not okay with where they're at. And it makes them feel like they're actually just doing something, doing anything. It makes them feel like they're being busy. It makes them feel temporarily like they're more successful. But I'm like, if you look at the metrics of your life, you're not. It's having no effect. You're just having more things to consume.
The thing is, like, ironically, they're a self-fulfilling prophecy where they will stay on the same hamster wheel and keep proving why it doesn't work, but at least they get to blame something outside of themselves. So it's like, oh, well, it was the strategy, it was the course, it was the mentor, it was the thing. But it's like, sorry guys, I'm still sick. But it's like the one thing that they never actually look back is like, actually, what if it was you? What if it was like you were the thing that you needed to look at and, like you said, get honest with and have those hard conversations with yourself? And I feel like people don't want to have the hard conversation with themselves, so they keep looking external. But it's like, honestly, most of your problems can be solved by having those harder conversations with yourself.
I would say that's where like my success with clients comes from. I think it's why I have really strong retention, and I know it's why I get results. Like, I can't tell you how many times someone's been like, I was really frustrated hearing that, but I was frustrated because you were right. Because you're sort of like I think people are used
because their inner knowing knew. Like it was like their gut was like, oh, that hurt because I know that's true.
But people run from that inner knowing all the time. And I was fascinated seeing that because I'm like, you feel uncomfortable because your brain and your body wants you to know something. And now you're not using that knowledge. You're like, no, my brain's scared of feeling this very normal emotion. Like, and once you get over that little hump, you get so much more out of it. And I don't know why there is such an obsession in human beings to lie to themselves.
Yeah.
Once you see something and accept it, it's a lot easier to move through it. And you're like, oh, that wasn't so bad. The worst part was always the resistance to it. The worst part was living in the old way.
I feel like a lot of people are very sold to the story. And I feel like that it's the story that they tell themselves about either who they are or who they have to be or who they're not. And then it's also the story of the perception of who they are through other people's eyes as well. So a lot of high performers, you know, they will often not make choices that are actually serving for them, that they need to make, they know they need to make because of how they're perceived from the external. So like, oh, what are people going to say if I take a break? What are people going to say if I change directions? Like, because their whole identity gets wrapped up in their performance, in how good they are, in their success, in their money, in their numbers, like whatever it might be. Do you see that a lot?
Yeah. With females, it's what will other people think?
Yeah.
With males, it's more common that they feel like a failure of some kind if they change something that has been working. So my sort of process with people is like, I really get to know them and sort of like study them. I get to know a lot about their life. And for a high performer, for example, somebody who owns a company, they're in charge of a bunch of different people. They have a lot of different roles. They also have their family to look after. You know, let's just say they're a husband, they're a father, they are a CEO of some kind. They've got staff and employees. So everybody's always looking to them.
Yeah.
And they don't actually have too much time to reflect on how is this working as a whole. And interestingly, this is why the way I do things and see things comes in such handy for them, because I look at the bigger picture and I can notice certain traits. So what a blind spot is basically something that you're doing in all areas of your life or a lot of different areas of your life that is causing you hindrance. At some point, that action, behavior, way of doing things helped you. And we haven't become very good at learning when to retire that. When it's like, you know what, that used to be very helpful. It's not helpful anymore. I would see the same thing in trauma. Hey, this defense mechanism used to be very helpful.
Yeah.
It's now hurting you in your relationships. So with women, a female brain, if you think back to like hunter-gatherer times, we need a group of women. We have a group of women gathering. We relied on social ties. So I find that women are like, oh, what will other people think?
Yeah.
Whereas men were more like, let's hunt in a small group or alone. They don't have that same weight on what will other people think. It's more of like a self-driven or like, no, but this has worked. You know, they're a lot more logical and analytical.
And they also then have to like provide for others. So then it's like, what will it mean about them if they're not able to go back and take food back to the camp type vibe? And then it's like about them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a reflection of them.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, either way it is, but they just focus on different things, like the male versus female. So when you see someone who has a lot of success, and what you said is like, so often they're so close to it. It's like you're so close to the sun, you can't actually see it. So it's like that's where you and I both come in for people, because a lot of the time they're too in their emotion, they're too in their day-to-day, they're too in it. And when you can actually have someone outside of it, that can feel quite threatening as well, because it's almost like when you reveal blind spots, people are held up a mirror. So it's like, do you ever see people who are not receptive to it, or is everyone pretty receptive to it when you can like hold up a blind spot to them?
I feel like everybody is. I think the only time that people are not is more so maybe it might be other people in your life or things that you can just notice. But generally when people hire you, they're very ready to
I was about
do
to
that.
say, when you're like working with someone, I feel like you want it. But when it's like, oh, you're trying to tell your partner, it's like, no, that's not the role there.
No. So I think that's why I tend to not really say anything unless I'm asked. Or if I know someone's hired me, you know what you're going to get from me. And I got thanked recently actually for basically, if I could put it like an analogy sense, it's like sitting someone down and getting them to understand this is how you're operating and what you're doing. It's not as helpful anymore. this is really helpful, or I don't just say that's not helpful and then just leave you there.
Yeah.
It's like, this is what I think how you could be doing it. And, whether you're dealing with, let's just say in any company, you're dealing still with people and relationships and emotions and how to communicate effectively and how to hold your emotion when you need to communicate effectively. So we have a lot of those conversations, but also helping them see what season they're in and sort of holding them through the process of like, we're going to sit down here and we now need to start pulling back here. And equally, one of my beautiful clients who sent me the message, she's like, you are so good at pushing me when I need it, even though it's uncomfortable. And she's like, I was equally frustrated and uncomfortable when you were kind of pushing me to pull back.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, like that's what I do. I can see someone as a whole and I can see where to push and where to pull.
Yeah. And I think that's the making of any great like coach, mentor, like whatever you want to describe it as. I think that you need to have that ability. And this is why like I'll never get how people hire people strictly based on a skill of like, oh, you can just help me with that. I mean, I get there's times and places for it. But for me, if I'm ever hiring someone to, like, I'm a high performer, you're a high performer, like we are these people ourselves. And it's like, if I'm ever hiring someone, it's got to be someone who understands how humans work. Like, I feel like that's the base level. And then on top of that, you can have any other skills you want. But it's like that base level of like understanding humans is so important, because it's never going to be, oh, here's how to communicate better, or here's how to have a better strategy. Like, it really is like, all right, let's look at who you're being while you implement this strategy, while you communicate this thing, and then let's see how you work in relation to everything around you. And like how, because it's true, everything in life is relationships, whether it's money, whether it's yourself, whether it's your friends, whether it's your boss, like it doesn't, children, like everything is relational. And I think you have to have people in your corner who understand how things relate to each other. And I think that's what you and I are both very good at. But it's like, yeah, I think that's why your clients get such good results, is because you know how to relate with what they need at what time.
Yeah, and to see it as the bigger picture, because that's what I found, particularly in the corporate world, where they're like, oh, okay, we need to improve marketing, let's hire a marketing person. We need a different strategy, let's hire a strategist. And a lot of what they thought was sort of working on things was kind of getting these really isolated pieces going.
Yeah.
But then them as a human being and as the person running it was getting no eyes on them. So you feel like you're growing something and doing something. So I think it serves two different purposes.
Yeah.
And some people only care about growing the company, but you can never discount like who is doing it. Like, this is why people get new CEOs, because of how that person operates, how they think, how they perceive something, how they switch things around. So I think it's really important for people to be working on themselves and have somebody who has eyes on them as the operator. And I like to take a lot of time to learn everybody's life, how they're already operating, the things that you value, because that's how I essentially study someone, and I learn what to push and what to pull, what I need to say to get that out of someone. This might sound like super random, but I always used to go to the chiro, for example. It's like every time you go, they click it or crack it back into place. You give it a week, it's back out again. And I started going to this really cool guy. He's like from Russia. He just does something totally different. And every time I'd go to my appointments, it was no cracking, no pulling. Like, it was these really subtle, gentle movements and like little pressures where he would just like put his fingers in and just sort of maneuver like my muscle and my ligaments and stuff. And I literally, like, so many things disappeared. Like, I did however many sessions, and he's like, yeah, we were talking about it, and I was saying this relates to me so much of how humans work and how children work especially. I was like, if you guide someone gently and sort of put things where they need to be, you give a much better result, because you've got what I call like the whole system on board. No one's feeling pushed or pulled or forced. And equally, don't get me wrong, sometimes there's little sore spots and you have to go in there and you have to
get
do
a bit
that.
harder.
Yeah. But when you look at something like the chiro example, it's like, and you're pushing and pulling, and your muscles and everything is actually what holds your bones into place and your ligaments. So you can be pushing the bone back in all you want, but if you're ignoring, if there's like tension somewhere or something is off, it affects the whole thing. And what I found fascinating about human behavior and sort of where it correlates to the human body, if your feet are off, how people might have one longer leg or one shorter leg, if you're not getting your pelvis adjusted, for example, and you've always got one slightly off, your knees start to go out, your ankles go out, your hips go out. Then people are like, I have neck pain. And then, they'll go and get treatment for their neck. But if you've never addressed the original problem, which was at your feet, it's just a whole cascade of things. And, this applies to me in so many other situations in so many other ways. But that's essentially how I look at things. Like, how do we get to the root? How do we get to the core? And then how do we get the whole system on board? And another thing I've noticed is people have a very low tolerance of patience for a process, because I want this result now and it should be like this and I want it. And guys, I love manifestation energetics, but I'm just going to manifest it and I'm going to do it. But you need to look at things as a whole. It's not just energetics. It's not just strategy. It's not just this thing. You need to have a little piece of everything, because that creates the whole.
Yeah, it's like an ecosystem. Like, I always think of it like that. Like, I think the arguments, we were talking about this on the way here, but like the arguments are just so void, where it's like, is it strategy? Is it manifestation? It's like, guys, it all works together. Like, all of it has to be working together. And sure, you can pull on the parts that, if you are just more of a logical thinker, then you draw more on the strategy. If you are more of an intuitive being, you lean more into the spiritual. You do what you need to do to get to where you need to get to, but you can't be delusional in thinking that they don't all exist at the same time and need to be a part of the process. And you're doing it, you just don't know you're doing it. So people who are like manifesting, they actually have a strategy in place, they just don't know it, or they don't call it that. And then like vice versa. So it's like, I think that conversation is just people realizing that we all have just those unique ways that we need to go through a process, and how we actually benefit from the process as well.
And there's not one process. So when I look at any strategy or anything, and people get called innovative for this, I'm like,
what do you mean?
We're designed to operate. I'm sorry, I have to have a lipstick on your tooth and I can't let you continue.
I cannot let you continue. Thank you, camera.
But essentially, when you look at, say you look at the Forbes 500 richest people, or you look at the most successful people, or people who have invented strategies and things, all they did at the end of the day was they had a gut feeling about something. They had inspired action towards it. The root is always the energetics.
Yeah.
They felt something and they acted on it and they followed through with it to the point where they built evidence. And they never actually know what they're doing in the time. What they usually do is sit down, reflect, and create a strategy from that.
Yeah.
But that's not going to work for every person. So my big belief in the way that I work with every individual person is, let's look at you. Let's look at how things work for you and how you want to operate. What's your inspired action? What's your thing? And those things can sound a bit fluffy, but once you really get to know someone and you work with them on that, it comes out organically. So it's just really interesting.
So what would you say then for how would someone know when they need to go into the pullback phase? Like, this could be anyone. They could be a CEO, they could be a mum, they could be hitting the gym, they could be building a business, they could be posting content online, they could be an athlete. Like, but how would you describe someone's inner knowing? What would they be feeling, sensations, thoughts around that?
Lack of satisfaction, feeling like just blah, like almost like numb. Also can have a phase though of like when you feel like you're trying so hard and you're like almost like pushing shit uphill.
Like force.
Yeah. Force.
It's not saying it's not hard, because the process of learning requires it to be unfamiliar and it will feel like there's resistance, but it's like when it's that force, explain the difference. You said it last night. You said it like really well. I just don't remember how you said it.
I don't remember either.
Shit. Can you try and make it up?
Yeah. So essentially, I think the way that I look at it is when we have a certain energy behind something, it's not hard. You know, when you get in like a flow state and you're like, I've done fucking 3 weeks of work in 1 hour.
Yeah.
You can look at that and be like, that's hard, but there's a certain energy behind it. Whereas when you're just pushing and doing it, and I think what I notice is like where I say to people often, like, where are you operating from? Because I see it happen a lot in the online world where people just want the money result.
Yeah.
And you can feel it, whether they're posting or in their content or anything like that. I'm like, you just want money and now you're doing all the right things. But I posted consistently. I did this, I did that, but like something's off inside.
Yeah.
And you start to sense that. And this is when you start to see people working really hard. It shouldn't feel like hard work in terms of like, I'm dreading it and I'm drained.
Yeah, it's like that dread and like that waking up in the morning of like, fuck, I don't want to go into today. Or like waking up with that anxiety of like, fuck, I've got to get a client today, or fuck, I've got to post content today, or I've got to go to training today. Like, I'm sure like if you think of a professional athlete, like I'm sure they don't always want to go to training, but they're like, this is in line with my goals. This is in line with the life I want. This is in line with the person I want to be. So I'm going to line that training session up with becoming the person that I say I want to be. And it's like they have a reason for doing it, that it's like that bigger picture. They're not so focused on like, I don't feel like it today. And they're not like reliant on like that.
I think the harder thing is with running your own business is until it gets to the point where you have people who depend on you a lot, it is a lot of how do I feel today?
Yeah.
Because an athlete, you're hired by a club. You have to show up. You don't show up, we'll rip up your contract.
Yeah.
No problems. Like there's no, man, I barely saw any, if you had a sick day, it's because you had surgery.
Yeah.
And you were still back at training the next day.
Yeah.
I saw this happen so many times, you got a broken arm, no problem, go do squats. Like there's no.
Yeah, you still show up.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. The online world is so different. And it's like there is no one waking you up in the morning at a certain time. There is no one making sure you deliver on what you say you're going to deliver. There is no one regulating what's happening in your world. There is no one telling you to have lunch. No one telling you to go move your body during the day. No one telling you to post content every single day. It has to be driven from internal will. And if you don't have that desire to do it, it's going to be really fucking hard.
It will be.
Like really fucking hard. And it's like that's why you have to attach it to something bigger, something like meaning for you to be, why are you doing the thing you're doing? Like, does it align with the life that you want? Do you have those values that like, this is important to me and I have like some level of obsession? Like, I don't know about you, but I truly don't think that you can be a business owner if you don't have some level of obsession with something. Like, no matter what it is, like there's some level of obsession driving someone to be crazy and have their own business. Like, I think it's a different mentality than a worker mentality. Neither right or wrong. I just think they're so different. And like, you have to have something different driving you.
Well, when you're hired by someone, there's a different level. It's almost like there's a body of people who make you accountable. And especially like, I was around team sports a lot, so your team relies on you. Mm-hmm. Whereas when it's just you and you're by yourself, it's like, okay, I need to like do this. And I also like to play devil's advocate. It's okay to have a day where you're like, I don't feel like this today.
Yeah, 100%.
One day is not going to kill anyone. Have a fucking day off.
But that's where people go wrong, is like they don't give themselves that day. So then it builds up. Into burnout. That's like, that is when they get burnout. But it's like, no, but you have to understand, even when people say be consistent, when we're talking about the gym, that doesn't mean you go to the gym every day.
All day.
It doesn't mean you're like constantly eating healthy. And it's like people, I see them tend to get in this very all or nothing mindset. And it's across the board with everything. And sorry, guys, I am sick on this podcast, which is if you keep hearing me cough, that's why. Like that. But this all or nothing mindset, I think, comes into the pullback. Because people are so stuck in that, then they're like, it's either I'm all in or I'm fucking burning this shit to the ground and I'm not doing it. And it's like, that's not what the pullback is. So if we come back to that, we somehow got on a weird tangent there. Don't know what we were fucking talking about.
But I kind of remember.
Yeah.
Like you asked me how can you tell if you need to have the pullback phase? So there was that like the dread, the numbness, the like nothing's there. And this can come after a period of doing something for a while. It's kind of like you can just tell it's like, people start to feel like I've outgrown that or I don't want to do that anymore. I also can tell when people are in a panic phase where they're panic getting different strategies and different things and like the panic. And then you asked me like maybe different examples of things, but what it might look like for different people. So, for example, I have a lot of clients who maybe they've been running a business for a while and they want to have a baby. It's like, well, you're going to have a pullback phase. That's going
to be forced upon you.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you prepare for that, you get to enjoy that pullback process. Sometimes it's uncomfortable. What I think I've seen happen to a lot of people is like, I'm not changing.
Yeah.
I'm going to be fine. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And then you watch them after a couple of months and it's like,
And they're like, I'm sorry. I don't agree with that anymore.
but they have a huge identity crisis and it becomes really tough. And before they, let's just say, before they switch gears and start to pull back, they go through a phase of really pushing themselves and burning themselves out. And I understand that a lot of the messaging is like, if you want it, you have to do it. And,
Yeah.
you know, you have to learn to adapt it. But it's like, I'm big on like work smarter, not harder.
Yeah. Same. I mean, I think there's hard work required, but like I have like equilibrium where like I see both.
Yeah.
And like I see in business, there's no half in, half out. Like you're either building the business or you're not. You're either obsessed or you're not. But does that mean that you have to be hard out hustle all the time? No, that's why we're talking about the pullback. That's why we're talking about seasons. That's why we're talking about, you know, there's not one and done way to do this. It's like you get to find your own equilibrium. I have clients who work 2 hours a day. I have clients who work 12 hours a day. And it's like they both love it. Which one's right or wrong? It's like you've got to find what your values are in life, what your vision of success is, how you want to live, and then align it with that. But continue with your examples. I just went on a tangent.
We love a tangent.
That's the whole episode.
But I'm like that with everything in life. I genuinely I like meal prepping in terms of like I put it in little containers. When I cook something, I'm cooking 3 or 4 meals at once. I'm like, I'm doing this now. And now I don't want to cook for the next 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
I'm the same with work. I'm doing this today, then I'm not doing it for 2 days.
Yeah.
I don't have that. It took me a long time to take that pressure off myself. But I was like, wait, but this is how I feel best. And what I did in that one day, I would have dragged it out and like not been very effective over 3 days of doing that. That takes a lot of ego work. It takes a lot of managing your emotions. It takes a lot of understanding and learning yourself how you operate best. And it takes a lot of not comparing and judging yourself to, okay, but we had this conversation about human design. You're a generator.
Yeah.
You work very well on go, 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 go.
Yeah.
I'm like the polar opposite of that, where it's like I will have a burst of energy. I'll create something. I'll do it. And then I want it to sustain me for a while.
Yeah.
I don't have the go, 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 go. I see that in my cooking. Bang, here's cooking. Now I want to do the bare minimum for a period of time until I do another big batch of whatever.
I would actually recommend everyone to look up their human design. I'm not really big into that. And if you know me, you know I don't like when people like label themselves and this, that, the other. However, we were talking about human design last night and we were like looking up my human design and everything just makes perfect sense for how I operate the smoothest, the cleanest, and the path of least resistance in my business. It just makes absolute perfect sense for how I like to do things, how I enjoy to do things, where I feel the most in my flow, etc. And someone else is going to be completely different. Now, you don't need to do your human design to figure that out. However, that was just what I looked at and I was like, hey, yeah, not going to identify with it. But yeah, I think that it was like a really cool sign of like, oh yeah, we do get to all do things in a way that suits us. And, you know, one of my biggest values in business is like helping people build value aligned lives and businesses. And I think every single person just has different ways that they want to do it. And I think it's about knowing that just because you see someone else do it another way or they're in a different season or this. And I think that's the whole point of this episode is like, don't let that tell you that you can't go into your pullback season because someone else is in their launch season, you know?
Exactly. And look, I coined the little pullback era thing based off of me going through it. And then that's when I could start to recognize, I'm like, oh, now this is happening here and there and for this person, that person. But the human design and the astrology really helped me look at myself objectively, where it's like you said, you can have a million different interests, but
yeah,
just looking at it, I was like, oh, okay, that is true. And then when you start to play around with it, it's like, okay.
Well, you start to ask yourself, yeah, is that when I'm most in my flow? And then you're like, actually, yes, it really is. And then you're like, so why am I working against that? You know, it's like literally I always bring it back to content. People are like, I'm a writer, but then they're trying to show their face on camera. And I'm like, but you're a natural writer. Sure, that's great. I do encourage everyone to show their face because I think it builds connection with a personal brand. However, if you are a natural born writer, why would you go against that? Like, if that is where your heart and soul is pulling you and that's how you express yourself, why would you go against it? You know?
I think we're sort of led to believe that everybody needs to have every skill or everything, and there's only one way that things work. And I remember I didn't want to be on socials for a while. And I just remember thinking, we didn't even have fucking socials 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Everybody ran their business perfectly fine. The amount of word of mouth I got anyway was like, I just kept going. And I was like, okay, we make it feel like something is the be all and end all.
Yeah.
And then you live real life and you're like, okay, it wasn't.
Yeah, well, you go into the pullback and then you actually surrender to it. And then Christina, the episode that I did before you, we were talking about her pullback and she said it's the best thing she's ever done. And I'm like, everyone in hindsight is like, it's the best thing I've ever done, but no one willingly wants to step into it because it's like, it's unknown, it's scary, it's unfamiliar. You have to stop the more. And like, I have a framework called the 7 deadly sins. I don't know if you know about it, but it's like where one of them is gluttony. And that's one of the things is like people keep consuming, thinking there's more, right? But it's like if you actually understand that the thing that you need is probably already within you, but you haven't tapped into that or you haven't allowed that to be like sitting with that and sitting with your inner knowing. And a lot of the time when you stop adding more, you get the clarity you need. But it's like you're trying to add to get clarity, but it's like it's actually chipping away at it to get clarity.
That's exactly what I do with the clients. I'm like, no more.
Yeah.
No more coaches, no more courses, no more this, no more.
So it's like what you and I both do with our clients, I love is like the statue of David. Everyone knows this, but like, oh, you don't know this?
Oh, the analogy.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. I'm like, of course you know this. Yeah, like the statue of David for anyone who doesn't know if you're living under a rock. But it's like the work that we more so want to do is like you are the statue of David, but like you're a rock at the moment. We want to like Alex and I, our work is like, let's chip away at this bitch and let's see what's actually underneath there because that's where the golden wisdom is. That's where your unique genius is. That's where the life you want is, you know, and yes, you might need to learn skills and this, that along the way, like of course, but most like high performers don't need help with that. They know the skills. They have the strategies. Like they're good at what they do. It's the mental game, which is that chipping away that they need.
Yeah. And, you know, even thinking about this now, I'm like the pullback, it really helps you redefine your safety in a way because you're like, I'm safe to pull back. It changed my relationship to money as well, where I know for me and for a lot of people, you're like, oh my God, but what if I'm not doing then this much? But it made me really realize life, the universe, whatever we want to call it, doesn't work that way. Money stayed pretty similar.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is so weird. I felt like I was so mentally consumed and trying to do so much all the time. And I'm like, it really hasn't. And then I started to see like there's so much safety in life.
Yeah.
That it's something that I always say to people. And when I made like a money masterclass stuff, it's like when you look around, money's never let you down. And maybe at the very last minute, whatever it is, like you've pretty much always been able to afford to eat. We all have fucking iPhones and all this shit. Like we're not struggling.
Yeah.
We think we're struggling, but we're not. All of our basic needs are met. Always. No one that I know has ever ended up homeless. Like everyone's okay and we kind of all think that we're not okay, but we are. And this is where like the narrative that we tell ourselves and the story and stuff like that. I noticed it a lot. Might sound like a weird example, but with media and the news. So it's not facts that move people. It's narrative. So when you create a narrative and you have a narrative that's very strong, when you're presented with fact, you're inclined to dismiss fact if it doesn't go with the narrative that you've built.
100%.
And society works like that. You just look at world events and stuff.
Yeah.
Every country builds their own narrative. Yeah. Every, civilization builds their own narrative. Every political party develops their own narrative. And everybody's fighting for narrative. And that's a smart reason because humans operate that way.
Yeah.
When you control narrative, you control emotion. 100%. Then you can use emotional arguments. And then they have more weight. And then people start to ignore actual facts based off of the emotion that the narrative makes them feel. So we do this to ourselves as well.
So funny because, our event tomorrow, this is like something that I was like writing down a few notes. This is like one of the things was like looking at the internal narrative that people are loyal to. That's so weird. That's like the exact same thing. But it's true. People have these beliefs, stories, about themselves and they're so desperate to have them be true. And they will like literally avoid everything in life that doesn't fit that narrative.
But it's often the blind spot as well.
Yeah.
They don't realize what the narrative is until you're like, yeah, but you do this here, here, and here. And they're like, oh. And then suddenly the narrative is like dissolving and you haven't had to do some fucking ayahuasca ceremony to process it. You know what I mean? Or hold like cards and crystals between your toes or something. But you don't need to do all of that. You don't need to go to therapy for 4 years.
Yeah.
To me, it's about just recognizing, because once you recognize, and this is why I'm big on perspective and things, is because once you recognize it and you see it, you're like, well, I can't unsee it.
Well, I don't think that self-development should be teaching people what to think. I think it should be teaching people how to think for themselves and how to shift their own perspective, how to challenge their own perspective, how to, you know, play devil's advocate with yourself. Like a lot of what you actually think and believe, it's like, is that actually like true in fact? And a lot of the time your default, you know, we're probably going to tell you that's not actually the thing you should be doing, even though we're saying like trust yourself, trust your gut, but like your default narrative is not your soul. Like that's the ego.
No, what you just said though, it's so funny. I said what you wrote in your notes. What I wrote, I'm writing like 2 books at the moment.
We are the same person.
Actually, but what basically anything I teach, I'm never trying to teach people. Like I literally wrote this in my book, so it just freaked me out that you said it. I'm teaching you how to think.
Yep.
I'm telling you what's there and then teaching you how to interact with it.
Yep.
And I'm not teaching you how to think about that topic. I'm teaching you how to engage with stimuli that's coming.
Because everything's relational, what we said at the start.
Exactly. And if you don't know how to think, you'll always just believe whatever or go along with how someone else thinks. But if you don't know actually how to look at things and start to pick them apart, and not in like a rumination way, but actually be like, hang on a second, I've been like on this train, and this is again where the pullback comes in. It's like, I've been on this train and this trajectory for so long. When have I actually paused to like look around and reassess where I am? And is that even where I want to be going? And a lot of people start to, you know, get freaked out. Like maybe it's a midlife crisis or a quarter life crisis or this or that. But it's like, no, maybe you just started trudging along and then doing things in a less conscious manner, taking it on, and then you're like, oh, I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
It's like, well,
Yeah, and it's like maybe you just wandered down this path, but you didn't actually realize that wasn't where you wanted to go, and now you just want to go on a different path. But it's like, but people are like, nah, it's like sunk cost fallacy, where I've got too much in it. Like I've been here too long, I've put too much in, like I can't possibly stop. That's one of the biggest things that I see for people is like, they want to try something different. They want to do something new. They want to go a different direction. They want bigger, better things for themselves, but they can't stop what they're doing. And often for the high performer, it is because they have so much on the line. They have people under them as staff. They're responsible for them. They're responsible for family. They're responsible for, you know, paying a house mortgage, everything. They're responsible for clients. They're responsible for offers they have to deliver, whatever it is. And it's like, because they have so much on the line, I find often that's why they really struggle. I don't think it's because they're incapable of going into the pullback. I think it's because their fear and narrative is like, if I do that, everything else, like I am at the top responsible for this. Therefore, if I change one little thing, it's like the butterfly effect and I'm going to fuck everything up. And it's almost like I'll stay in this familiar hell where I know I'm not at my potential, but I'll stay here because it's way better than risking changing anything. And like, what if I fuck it up? What if I this, that, the other? What if I lose it all? What if money goes away? What if clients go away? What if people forget about me? What if I become irrelevant? Like whatever it is, you know, what if my family can't eat for the next 6 months? Like what the fuck am I going to do? And I think that, yeah, it really is letting people know that like, that's not going to happen.
See, this is why I think humans are designed perfectly, because we have emotions and we have a brain. I would tell everyone, your brain is not there to make you happy. It's there to help you survive.
Survival.
It's a survival machine.
Yeah.
So it's never going to tell you that the smart option is to do what feels right and what makes you happy. It's going to say, fucking this, and this could happen. This could be really bad.
Yeah.
Watch out. You're going to fall off the fucking cliff. Like that's what it's designed for. Whereas I think we're perfectly designed because we have emotions. So we have things that guide us in that direction. You know, and when I say emotions, it's not like I feel happy, sad. I mean more like that feeling, like a gut feeling or a pull in your heart where you're like, I just feel something here.
Yeah.
That's of a different nature and I need to follow that. And, yeah, just the brain being for survival, I think, is really important. But there's something else that you said where I learned this lesson in relationships, and it was like the poker machine analogy. I've put so much money into this thing. Surely I'm going to hit a jackpot soon.
And you're like, if I step up and walk away, someone else is going to come in.
Someone's going to put 20 cents and they're going to win.
They're going to put the thing in and they're going to win all that. Yeah.
They're going to hit the jackpot, and I've put all this time and effort and everything into this machine. I can't leave this chair.
Yeah.
And we do that. We do that in relationships. We do that in, well, this particular way of doing business has worked for me, or that's worked for me. And that was a big part of my pullback process, was kind of understanding like that's not real. Like sometimes like the pulling away is the important thing. The house always wins, you know? And it's like you have to understand when you keep putting coins in there, like you're not in control of what comes out of the machine.
Yeah. It controls you at that point.
Exactly.
And it's like, that's why addiction.
Exactly.
Because everyone is so disconnected from their own self and their own, like listening to that inner knowing that like is telling them, you know, something's off. We need to pivot. We need to change. We need to pull back here. We need to slow down. And again, it's not always in action. It's not always like you need to stop doing the thing. But sometimes it's like maybe we need to start thinking about the thing in a different way.
That's literally basically an example that I had was a girl coming to me and telling me, she's like, I'm going to start a jewelry brand. Really excited. She wanted it to be like really good quality, like whether it was real gold or the ones that like don't rust and stuff. You can wear them in the water.
Yep.
And like vision sounded beautiful. And I was like, amazing. She's like, yeah, you know, but it's going to cost X amount to start doing it. And I was like, okay. And she's like, yeah, you know, like I need to get all this money and then I need to buy the stock, buy a whole bunch of stock, and then I need to do the photo shoots and I need to do the social media and the branding and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, okay. I was like, something's a bit off here, because she's like, no, I know. I just need to believe in myself and do it. And I was like, well, yes, but I was like, you can be a lot smarter about it too. I was like, why would you deplete all of your resources into buying this stock that you're doing it for the first time? I was like, when I say work smarter, not harder, I mean, you're putting yourself in survival energy. Then you need to make things work to a level where you need to sell all of that to get money to do it again. I was like, as if you wouldn't just get, I didn't say as if, but I was like, what you should do,
Yeah.
I said, is get samples made, do your photo shoots, go hard on the brand, hard on like the vibe, like make people want it. And I was like, it's going to be your first ones.
Do like a pre-order.
That's exactly what I said. I was like, you then do a pre-order and you get the exact amount of stock that you need. You make it limited.
Look at us business people.
Yeah, but I was like, you know,
Yeah, it's just
you bring in the I'm going to manifest it element and bring in your brain into it. Like be smart about it, where and realistic in the sense of like when I tell people be realistic, don't make your dreams smaller. Be more realistic in terms of why would you put yourself in survival energy? It's going to be your first drop. You're not even going to like it. You don't know if you like your supplier. Like, what are you going to do with all this stock? I've seen it happen.
Oh, I've seen that happen as well. People order everything and then, you know, something's wrong or the supplier fucks them over or whatever it might be. Yeah. But it's like with that, like having someone in your corner you're like detached from the situation, that you can take that overview look and be like, oh, you're obviously, you know, people are too in their situations.
But that's exactly what I do. Take that situation, then take like, you know, a property developer where I'm like, you feel the weight of all of this to the point where your emotion clouds you.
Yeah.
So he loves talking to me about it because I'm so detached from the situation that I'm almost more logical in a way, and I can bring in the other elements into it and it works a lot more cohesively. Whereas when you're that person, it's a different pressure, you know? Like,
well, it feels like everything's on the line.
It does.
And it's like, yeah, you don't want to make any move because you're almost like, if I don't keep doing exactly what I'm doing, like it'll all just crumble. And I feel like that is so scary for a lot of people.
But this is what I think people don't understand is like, especially when you look at when you're starting something, people are like, I just want to make $1 million or I just want this or I just want that. And it's like, you have to go through the process. Like I always get the word like forged anew. Like, that phrase just always comes into my, you have to become that person because you can't be plonked in. I remember saying this to someone, she's like, I just need money. I just want to make money.
Yeah.
You know, I want this and I want that. And, you know, you start looking at like whatever a subconscious block would be or things like that. But I was like, at the end of the day, I was like, you need to go through a process where you become that person. I was like, imagine I just said, no worries, let me plonk you as the CEO of this company. You have no fucking idea what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're not going to know how things work or how they run. You need to sort of like almost, let's just say in a corporate sense, when you go up the ladder, you learn every rung, and that's how you become a good CEO.
And you know it because you were there and you were actually living it and doing it. But when you skip the steps, you've just missed a whole chunk of wisdom.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think people understand that they learn that wisdom through learning, through going through that process.
I'm going to say something brutal too.
Love it.
Just have to. Most people are not meant to, maybe not meant to is not the right word, but a lot of people who want to have a platform and do all of these things, you're just like, you just want to feel good about yourself. Mm-hmm. You're not really bringing too much that's of value in that sense.
Yeah.
And I see that all the time. Yeah, I say it in the most loving way where it's like, I want to get paid for being me. No offense. Like, be an entertainer, be whatever.
What are you helping someone? Like, what value do you have to another person? What problem are you solving? How are you actually doing something for someone else?
So I think this only becomes an issue. It's like, do you want to be an influencer?
Yeah.
Or do you want to be an online coach?
Yeah.
Because you can't want the life of an influencer but be putting yourself out there as a coach. It's like, if you want to get paid for being you, by all means, go on reality TV, be an influencer, do those things. But if you want to be helping people with something, or you would see this a lot. I just observe this, but you probably work with this. It's like people will like collect a bit of a following, or, you know, they just want to share random stuff. But it's like how you end up turning that into a business or monetizing that is a totally different ball game.
Yeah, it's a different skill set, I think. Yeah. And you do need to be way more. That's why I genuinely think, like, not even me, but just anyone in your corner to help you. Because if you don't have someone in your corner helping you, you're making all these decisions based off your survival instinct of all the comparison you're seeing online, and you're trying to patchwork your strategy, you're trying to copy someone else, your comparisons coming in, like literally all of your ego is just building your business, and that is very shaky grounds to build your business on. Like, you need to be grounded, you need to be logical, you need to be connected to your soul, you need to have all of that in line, and you do get paid to be yourself. However, there are the very real skills and the messaging and the content and the what offer do we have, what are we solving for people, how do we become. I say to people all the time, do not ask me how to make money. If you fucking ask me that question, I will stare at you and just like blankly stare at you. A better question that you could ask me would be, how do I become so valuable that people think I'm more valuable than their money and they're willing to give me money in exchange for how valuable I am? Better fucking question.
And that's being of service.
Literally. And I'm like, I think people kind of forget that a little bit, but it's like just, and it's, again, like not their quote fault, because they do see it online every single day. But I think there just needs to be more of a real conversation of like, you really genuinely do need to be of value. And if you're not of value, that's not a personal attack about you not being a valuable person. It's saying you don't have something valuable to offer that someone will pay you for. There is a difference, and that narrative that you attach to it is where, not you, like people attach to it, like that's where they go wrong.
You just said it perfectly, because it doesn't mean you're not valuable as a person. It's like you're not offering anything valuable enough to the space where people will want to pay you for that.
Like it's an exchange. Yeah. It's an energy exchange. Money is energy. It needs to flow. And if people are going to exchange it, then you need to be of value for them to give their hard-earned money to you. Why should you earn that? You know what I mean? And people are like, I don't want to earn it. I should just get, and it's like, no. Like, I think that's why people take that narrative a bit too far.
100%. And the earning is like, to earn something doesn't mean you're hating life and grinding, doing what you hate. It just means, like, as you said, it's a value exchange.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it. Okay, so we are over time. So what are your biggest words of wisdom that you could give someone who is, it's so funny, every single podcast episode I've done has been people going through their pullback seasons and then how they've come out on the other side to be more successful. It's so wild. Like every single conversation that I've had a guest on.
Now you got the pullback girl here.
And the pullback girl is here. So what would you say to anyone who feels like maybe they're doing more, and they're on that treadmill right now, they're in the narrative, what would you say to them to be the first step that they can take if they need to start looking at, all right, more is not my answer here?
I think that is when they say the first step is acceptance, you need
Yes.
to accept that that's where you're at.
Yeah.
And I think people, just how humans function, we don't accept that until we feel like we've tried. So I understand the more serves a purpose.
Yeah.
It's not wrong. It's not bad. It serves a purpose because you're like, you know what? I did try. And all that we're doing, I just kind of see us like these emotional beings where we're just making that communication louder. It's like, okay, I've done it. I've tried more and more. Something's really telling me like, no. And I think people don't slow down enough to have that feeling. And this is why I think religion has been such a big part of life. Is why I think spirituality is very important, is because when you think about it, it's just teaching people to slow down, to stop and take a moment every day to reflect, to be grateful, to pray. You know, to me, prayer is not like asking for what you want, essentially. It's not like you're just like, this is my order to the universe. Like, I think that's very juvenile.
Yeah.
I think prayer is about, like, my pullback phase personally made me redefine what my spirituality is, or what my relationship with that is. It's your relationship to yourself and to a higher power. And this is what we're doing. And I think this is why I've seen like an explosion of, particularly in online people, going back to religion as well, is because they made money their God. They made validation their God. They made followers. And then you need to go back to something that's a bit more sustainable, long-term, maybe a bit more humble in a way, which is that's all it is. You're not now looking to other things to compare. You're having reflection with yourself and a conversation, so to speak, with a higher power. That would probably be like my words of wisdom, is you have to recognize it, and then you have to be prepared to go on a journey where you have to rebuild a different connection with yourself.
Yeah.
And this is why it rebuilds such a different level of trust in life and in the world and how things work afterwards. Because like I said, it changed my relationship with money. It changed my relationship to how I live my life every day. Like those small, mundane, really beautiful things. You start to see how, you know, when people do like a gratitude journal, right through, you start to see how innately, just from, so to speak, the energetics of it, you then start to reflect and develop, like, that's the strategy though. I don't need to sit down and write my gratitudes. I genuinely feel it every day now.
Yeah.
In the weirdest and smallest of things. And you can only get there. You can't fake your way in there. You can't, I know a lot of mindset people like, write it down, remember, but I think there is a certain relationship and communication that you develop. And I think the more you have that relationship with yourself and the space and the quiet, you hear things very clearly in yourself.
Yeah.
The plans, everything starts to drop in, and the path starts unfolding. I think the problem is that a lot of people have relied on other people to be like, this is the path, do that. And, you know, I've never seen my role as that. I don't see your role as that either. But I feel like my role is I feel a lot. Again, this is where maybe the astrology or human design has helped me. I'm a water, like I'm a Cancer sign, like I'm a big feeler. My superpowers are emotion. Doesn't mean I'm like crying all the time. I'm definitely not much of a crier, but I feel very deeply. So when I have someone in front of me, it's like all of me, almost in a psychic sense, feels into them. And then I can see where we're at and what needs to move and what needs to happen. And I hold them through that process. I'm not telling you what the process is and telling you how to do it. I will guide that process, just like me going to my Russian dude to
it's like you ask
body.
the right questions, showcase the right things.
Yeah, and I will tell them, like, you know, sometimes you need to have tough love, sometimes you have softness. To me, it's like having another child almost. Like I'm helping you and shaping you.
Molding them.
It's probably like a long answer to your question, but I think people need to be prepared to, one, acknowledge where you are, and then two, what I haven't listened to them, but I can guarantee you what every person's had to do is go on a journey after that.
Every time.
You can't speed it up. Again, it's like the giving birth thing to me. You can't.
You got to sit in the void for a little bit. You just got to be willing to sit there.
But it is, because you've spent so much time putting so many things in your mind. You need time to empty those things out. Then the stimuli around you is going to challenge you. Like, oh, should I be doing that? Should I do it this way or that way? Then you become embodied in it. And to me, it's the exact thing of giving birth. It's like you need to be in the process and patient with it. There's nothing you can do. If we want to call it doing a poo, you can't make your poo be ready faster. You can't push it out before it's ready. Like, it just has a process.
It's just going to do its thing. Yeah. And that's a great analogy, because you always know when you're forcing it.
You do. And I'm passionate about a great, smooth, satisfying poo.
Good bowel movements.
Yeah.
We love that. All right. Thank you so much for this. So tell the audience where they can find you and connect with you.
Amazing. On Instagram, it's pretty much the only place you'll find me.
Love.
At Portal.
She's a simple girl.
Yeah. Portal by Alex.
I love this so much. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. If you have loved it, please share it. Please tag us when you share it. And then please come into our DMs and tell us what you thought about this episode. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Only DM us if it's nice. Thanks.
Yeah, no rude comments. Love you. Bye.